Can you hear me better now? All right. Start by introducing.
I'm Josh Hutchinson, a student trustee.
Good evening, everyone. Kian Chuang, he, him pronounced, representing Zone 3, including the Southeast Campus.
Lori Cremona-Wagner, Zone 1, that's Tiger Tualatin, Lake Oswego, all the way down to Newburgh Center.
Mari Watanabe, Zone 4, which includes Rock Creek campus.
Dan Saltzman, Zone 5, which includes Southwest Portland and a good part of Beaverton.
And I am Tiffany Penson, Zone 2, North and Northeast Portland, so Cascade Campus. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. So we will review our working agreements each month at the start of our board meetings. So there they are up on this slide. And I think, Mari.
Yeah.
Mari, would you like to make sure that we meet our working agreements and provide? Okay. These working agreements can be found in the board packets and on the screen. Now to our land acknowledgement. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. We begin this effort to acknowledge what has been buried by honoring the truth. We are living on the ancestral lands of the Multnomah, Wasco, Cowlitz, Cathlamet, Clackamas, Band of Chinooks, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Molalla, and many other tribes who made their homes along the Columbia River, creating communities and summer encampments. We pay respects to their elders, past and present. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. And please join us in uncovering such truth at any and all public events. The PCC strategic plan has identified an emerging commitment to acknowledging and supporting Native and Indigenous communities, specifically with the engagement and recommendations from the Native Nations and Indigenous Equity Steering and Action Group of the District Leaders of Diversity Council. Please continue to think about and support the college's efforts to materialize the commitments related to place, policies, programs, and participation for the Native Nation, tribal, and Indigenous communities we serve. We also ask you to consider moving beyond acknowledgement and reflection to action by supporting organizations that help to support Oregon tribal students. Okay. Approval of agenda. Call for a motion to approve the April 17th, 2025 board agenda. I second. Anybody, any discussion? Okay, Jennifer?
Cremona-Wagner,
Aye.
Penson,
Aye.
Trung,
Aye.
Watanabe,
Aye.
Saltzman. McKelvey is absent and Zone 7 is vacant. All are in favor and motion passes.
Thank you. Approval of minutes. Call for motion to approve the March 20th, 2025 minutes as published.
Second.
Any discussion? Jennifer?
Cremona-Wagner,
Aye.
Penson,
Aye.
Trung,
Aye.
Watanabe,
Aye.
Saltzman. McKelvey is absent. Zone 7 is vacant. All are in favor. Motion passes.
Before we get started on the rest of our agenda, if it's okay with Chair Pinson, we do have a very long agenda tonight, and I'd like to move the recognition of our student interns to the top of the agenda so they can get home earlier in the evening if you need to leave. And so if that's okay, I'd like to welcome Sage Learn, Executive Director of College Relations, to the speakers table to get things started.
Thank you. I wanted to take some time so we could recognize an incredible group of PCC legislative interns. This is our 2025 group. They're each taking the time to do internships in Salem, learn about the legislative process in addition to their other studies. And I also want to thank the government relations team and student services team that have been working with them. Stephen Arthur, Colette Tipper, Allison Krause, and our faculty Doug Bird and Tanya Maldonado. Can the legislative interns please join me in the front? And if you can quickly introduce themselves and say which office you're interning in, and Jennifer has a mic for you.
And then we're gonna take.
Oh, and I think we have slides.
Can we pull up the slides for the 2025 legislative and Frisbee interns, please?
Do you want me to keep going, and should we pause a minute?
Did you have more you wanted?
There we go.
Okay, there we go, perfect. I can have each of you join me up here. Henry, if you want to introduce yourself and share who you're interning for.
My name is Henry Dietrich. I am interning with the Office of Representative Paul Evans.
Hi, Olivia Jensen. I'm with Senate President Wagner.
And we've got 3 more folks if they want to join. Eleanor?
Hi, I'm Eleanor, and I'm working with Senator Reynolds, who actually just hosted a town hall with Rep. Watanabe. Hi.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lucy, and I'm with Senator Taylor's office.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kushi, and I am with Representative Susan McLean's office.
And if you all want to join us in the front for a quick picture with Dr. Bennings and the board, and then if we can have our amazing team of folks that have been working with them come up as well, Stephen, Allison, and Colette.
Y'all are gonna have to maybe double up, maybe Colette and Kian, and let's see. There we go. We ready? 1, 2, 3, I'll take a couple. There you go, great. Congrats, everybody.
And we have a little gift for you guys as well. Yeah, Allison, maybe do you want to hand that real quick and then we'll, or Colette? Thank you.
You probably don't.
Thank you.
And we have one more recognition. We have our amazing government relations intern,
Yes.
who has been working with Allison Krause and Colette Tipper.
I don't
Oh,
know.
we should have a
No, I
slide
don't
on
think so.
this one too.
There we go. Oh.
Perfect. This internship is made possible through our former board member Denise Frisbee and Robert Frisbee. They generously support having government relations intern each year. He will be with us for the full, he will be with Allison and Colette for the full legislative session. Luke, do you want to come up? And Luke, if you can introduce yourself and tell us your favorite thing about the internship.
Hi, everyone. I'm Luke, and alongside working with my 2 wonderful managers, Allison and Colette, I've really enjoyed advocating for policies that I feel like I have a personal connection and a stake in, and that being higher education. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And one more quick picture. Yep.
Oh, that was close. Squeeze together. Squeeze a little more. There we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Take a couple. All right. Thank you.
The board will now adjourn as College Business Board and convene as College Budget Committee to hold a public hearing to approve the proposed budget for FY 2025 to 2027 biennium in accordance with ORS 294.4061. We will now hear from Dina Farrell, CFO and Vice President of Finance and Business.
Good evening, Chair Penson, Board of Directors, Dr. Bennings. I'm Dina Farrell. I am Vice President and CFO for Finance and Business Services. And tonight we are here to consider approval of the Portland Community College 25-27 proposed biennium budget and property tax levy. I'm joined by Mike Matthews, Interim Associate Vice President of Finance Operations, and Aaron Hill, Director of Budget. And I want to, before I get started, just acknowledge the budget team who is in the back of the room tonight. If you would just stand briefly for me. Thank you all. And I also want to acknowledge Kylie Gardner's team for the work that she did on the proposed budget document. Okay. So the budget process is grounded in the principles of fiscal stewardship. PCC must be efficient and strategic in our budget planning by focusing limited resources on ways that best advance the college mission, institutional priorities, strategic objectives, and goals. The foundation or guiding principles of the budget began many months ago when we launched the Fiscal Sustainability Action Plan in the summer of 2024. This plan was designed to ensure the long-term financial health and stability of the college through a 6-year scenario plan and will be updated as financial conditions change. The 2025-27 proposed budget is designed to be student-centered by focusing on quality education, affordable tuition and fees through long-term resource planning and program sustainability. The proposed budget meets the objectives of the Fiscal Sustainability Framework and Action Plan by establishing budget reduction targets, cost-saving measures, encouraging revenue-generating activities, setting tuition and fee assumptions aligned with enrollment targets and affordability initiatives. The Fiscal Sustainability Action Plan and budget is also reflective of the coordinated planning efforts of the strategic plan, the enrollment plan, the academic sustainability plan, and the president's work plan. A little later on in the board meeting, you'll hear more about the academic program sustainability process. Budget decisions are informed by all of these supportive planning efforts. This roadmap documents key dates related to the planning and development of the Fiscal Sustainability Action Plan and proposed budget. Our processes have been focused on transparency by introducing it to the college and obtaining valuable questions, suggestions, and feedback, which helps shape the final plan and the proposed budget. Budget development planning for the 25-27 biennium budget covers the time frame from which this budget period covers the time frame from July 1, 2025 through June 30th, 2027. I'm not going to walk through each individual milestone of the budget roadmap, but I do want to highlight a few key dates. You can read more about the Fiscal Sustainability Action Plan along with key dates and events on pages 27 through 29 of the detailed budget. In the fall of 2024, we introduced the Fiscal Sustainability Action Plan concepts, including the high-level overview at the board work session. In September, in order to better integrate the budget process with policy setting and strategic planning, the College Budget Planning Committee was redesigned as the Integrated Budget and Planning Council. This committee was designed to integrate policy and strategic planning with budget review and to invite input from staff, faculty, and students. The financial scenario planning represented in the Fiscal Sustainability Plan was introduced to the college during the fall of 24 and through college-wide forums and meetings with faculty, the ASPCC, Student Senate, the federations, the EAC, and other staff members. The purpose of these forums was to request suggestions, recommendations, and gather feedback and questions to inform and help guide the process. The plan and feedback from 12 college forum sessions, 427 attendees, and 835 suggestions and questions was discussed with the IBPC, and frequently asked questions were posted to the IBPC website. In October, the plan was discussed with the board, finalized, and then published on November 19th. The final plan was emailed to the college community and posted on both the Phys app and the IBPC websites, along with the associated frequently asked questions and answers. In the months that followed, many department planning sessions were held, as well as meetings with the IBPC and the ASPCC Student Senate. Budget discussions were held on January 25th at the board retreat. The budget preparation documents were underway in the winter. During February through March, the budget was drafted and the budget preview sessions were held with the IBPC, ASPCC, and individual board member meetings were held with you all, the board. The IBPC was key in budget information dissemination and review. And in addition, the IBPC recommended the tuition increase to the president, and her recommendation was approved by the board. The IBPC continues to provide a venue where community is invited to attend these meetings and submit questions or input. Many of these questions and answers were posted to the FAQ portion of the IBPC website. The concluding time period from January through April details the discussions that were held with IBPC, ASPCC, and with the board. The final dates in the timeline reflect where we are today and the next steps in the budget process, which require budget board approval, certification by the TSCC, and having an adopted budget in place so we can do business effective July 1. Once the board approves the budget, it goes forward to the TSCC on the path to adoption by June 30th. And with that, I will turn it over to Mike Matthews to walk through the TSCC process.
The Tax Supervising Conservation Commission, TSCC, was created by the legislature in 1919 to monitor county local government budgets, taxes, and debt. It's a state agency with 5 commissioners appointed by the governor. Their role is primarily consulting and advisory, though they do analyze, review, and certify budgets to ensure adherence to state budget law. The 6 steps of the budget cycle for local governments as outlined by the TSCC include 1, preparation for budget creation. This involves gathering necessary data like property taxes, CFCC, tuition, and identifying priorities for the upcoming fiscal year. The second step is the proposed budget. The budget is drafted, detailing expected revenues and expenditures. Transparency and college or public input are key during this stage. 3, the approved budget. The board, acting as the budget committee, reviews and approves the proposed budget, ensuring it aligns with legal requirements and college needs. TSCC certification is the next step, and on May 15th, the TSCC will review and certify the budget to ensure compliance with Oregon's local budget law. Step 5 is the adopted budget. The board will be asked to formally adopt the budget, setting legal spending limits and appropriations. Step 6 is monitor and post-adoption changes. So once that budget is set, adjustments can be made to the budget after adoption, such as supplemental budgets and appropriations transfers. So these steps all emphasize transparency, legal compliance, and college and public engagement throughout the budget process. The board approved Fiscal Sustainability Framework and Action Plan, or the FSAP, in a 6-year plan that provides for a forecasted 12 to 18% ending fund balance. The FSAP plan and the 2025-2027 proposed biennium budget provide the foundation and the first step towards a sustainable fund balance at the college over the next 6 years. Reaching that goal of 12%, which is equivalent to about a month of expenses for the college, has determined the reduction amount. And as you can see on this slide, it is $14,784,000 $1,236. That's for the 25-27 biennium. Using input from multiple college forums, FAQs, and discussions, the board, cabinet, Integrated Budget and Planning Council, the IBPC, and management have reviewed the reductions required, and those were used to establish the proposed budget before you. So as we saw in the previous slide, there are significant budget reductions that must occur to reach the approved 12% goal. There are two main components to the reductions, MS&S, Materials, Supplies, and Services, and the personnel and benefits cost reductions. So let's talk about a couple of definitions before we look at these. MS&S is Materials, Supplies, and Services. This is everything from pencils and books to consultants. An incumbent position is one in which there is currently a staff member occupying the role. A vacant position refers to an existing position that is currently unfilled. So the MS&S reductions in the proposed budget are $3,495,841. And the more difficult part, the $11,288,195 in personnel and benefit reductions. So these reductions are comprised of $5,776,768 from incumbent positions and $5,511,409 from vacant positions. 89% of the incumbent position eliminations came from management and confidential classifications, while 11% comes from non-management and confidential incumbent positions. In addition, on this slide, we've highlighted that part of the incumbent reductions also include a $1,501,161 in savings from a 1.58% salary reduction for all management and all confidential employees during the 2025-2027 biennium. Our assumptions in the Fiscal Sustainability Framework and Action Plan were based on the information we had available at the time in mid to late 2024. Then we were comfortable with setting the anticipated amount of the CCSF at 5%. As we moved along into planning the college proposed budget, the governor's proposed budget was released with a proposed 6.9% increase for all community colleges. It's important to note that the governor's proposed budget is just one part of the legislators' considerations in setting state's approved budget. So this number could move up or down based on their decisions. Tax revenue was initially set at 4.25%. And as we looked at the revenue realized from property taxes, we were comfortable moving that up slightly to 4.75%. In developing the FSAP, projections were about a 3% increase in enrollment. After discussions with Ryan Clark and his board presentation in March, we're comfortable with the increasing the enrollment projections to 4%. So if we look at the expense, the assumptions that didn't change are 4% increase in fringe rates, 5% increase in MS&S, and an 8% utility increase that was projected based on the FY24, FY25 actuals. Another important note here is $4 million was set aside for the ERP from this biennium, and an additional $7.7 million will be needed to fully fund the ERP over the next 2 fiscal years. An update will be provided at the May board meeting during the work session. Initially, we had planned for a $600,000 in additional capital projects, but have scaled that back to $300,000 for non-bond funded capital projects. The $300,000 of capital outlay dollars essentially include all non-bond related expenditures related to improving capital assets by upgrading or repairing existing assets to improve functionality or extend their life. So we're planning for approximately a 1% general fund contingency. The 12% reserve for ending fund balance is made up of two components, the 9% unappropriated ending fund balance and a 3% unrestricted emergency reserve. Those are important. We will be unable to meet our 12% reserve goal for the ending fund balance if we utilize the 3% unrestricted emergency reserves or the 9% unappropriated ending fund balance. So we should also note that the 9% unappropriated funds are not accessible at all to the college unless there is a significant catastrophic event as defined in statute. And with that, I will turn it over to Aaron.
Thank you. As part of the public hearing and budget approval process, the college is required to submit the property tax certifications to all county assessors. I want to take a few minutes and walk you through that. There are 3 budget preparation steps to certify the tax levy. First, determine the amount of the GO debt service requirements to cover the bond principal and interest payments. Second, calculate the amount to be levied. And third, complete the ED 50 form and the tax certification language in the resolution. On this slide, you'll find clips of the budget schedules and forms included in the budget document. There were 4 typographical errors that we have corrected to agree with the detailed schedules in the budget book, the resolution, and the required ED 50. The detailed corrections are stated in the notes on this slide, but no changes were made to the resolution or the ED 50 forms for consideration today. As next steps in the budget process, and mentioned earlier in the presentation, following board approval, the TSCC reviews the budget, the resolution, and the ED 50 forms and considers certifying the budget and the property tax levy. Here we have our 3-legged revenue stool, the percentages of revenue generated components of the college, community college support fund, tuition and fees, and property taxes. The tuition rate increase of 3.76% and the 85-cent increase to the student activity fee that were approved by the board in March, the tuition rate increase and the $5 for resident students and $10 per credit for international student residents now compiles 34% of the general fund revenue in this 3-legged revenue stool. This is less than the 40% maximum target set by our guiding principles and is less than the state suggested maximum of a 5% increase in tuition. All right. This is our total budget of all funds combined, a little over $1.5 billion. And there are 7 main groupings of funds, and I'll take you through each of those groups. The first we have our internal service funds. Internal service funds are utilized for activities provided by one department or another on a cost reimbursement basis. And these funds are the Print Center Fund, Internal Service PERS Reserve Fund, and the Risk Management Fund. The debt service funds were established to account for the accumulation of resources for the payment of principal and interest on the general obligation bonds, as well as to account for the accumulation of resources for the payment in principal and interest on the pension obligation bonds. The enterprise funds account for operations that are financed and operated similarly to private businesses. Enterprise funds are meant to be self-supporting, and these are the bookstore fund, food services fund, and the transportation and parking services fund. The capital project funds consist of 2 funds that account for the college's major capital expenditures related to the acquisition, construction, and remodeling of capital facilities. Revenue sources to finance the expenditures include the sale of general obligation bonds, the sale of property, and transfer from other funds, as well as $30 million that we have set aside for the ERP come out of this fund as well. The fiduciary fund is our early retirement fund, and this was established to account for the accumulation of resources to meet future obligations on the college's early retirement program. Principal sources of revenue are a transfer from the general fund and interest earnings from investments. And then we have the special revenue funds, and these are designed so that the expenditures are used only for specific purposes or activities. And they are the auxiliary fund, the continuing education unit or continuing education and development fund, contracts and grants fund, student activities fund, and the student financial aid fund. And then we have our general fund. And the general fund is here with specific purpose of funding the college's general operations and programs that align with the college's vision, mission, and values. And the general fund is comprised of the following accounts for resources and expenditures that balance out to $674.5 million. And they're broken out by the revenue, as you can see on the left, and then our expenses. We have our personnel, labor, and benefits, which takes up the majority of those resources on the expenditure side. And with that, I will turn it over to Dina.
I will walk you through the total contingencies that are available to the college. So the total contingency is $37,921,191. Part of that is the 3% unrestricted reserve ending fund balance of $9 million. So the $9 million plus the 9% unappropriated ending fund balance there on the right accumulates to the 12% ending fund balance that the fiscal sustainability, the minimum level that the fiscal sustainability plan set as our assumptions. On the left, you will see the set-asides from the contingency. Those are expenditures that we would expect to see happening in the next biennium. So on the top, you will see that the step increases for FFAP and FCE is an amount off the top that we transfer out of contingency to cover our step increases for our Federation staff. At the bottom, you'll once again see the 3% unrestricted emergency reserve, that being funds that should not be spent because those are funds that are critical in supporting our ending fund balance. In the middle, you'll see the general fund contingency, and that is comprised of there are strategic enrollment management positions that were temporary, a part of the strategic initiatives in the previous biennium. And in order to bring them forward into the next base budget, we have to actually move money out of contingency to support those. And that amount is $1,752,051. Then we have legal and other reserve per the fiscal sustainability action plan. That set aside is $3 million. And that leaves us with $7.5 million in general fund contingency. That is the amount that the college has available to it in the next 2 years, so approximately $3.75 million for each year. That needs to cover all unanticipated expenses. So that is unfunded mandates, that is strategic initiatives, that is a lot of other needs that we typically have money set aside for. And it will also need to cover the structure increase under the economic reopener for the Federation contract. So there's a lot of competing needs there for the general fund contingency. The next slide gives you a perspective on the ending fund balance history. It shows the 3 prior actual years as well as the 2 projected forecasted years. So as you'll see, beginning in 2022, we had a very healthy fund balance. That was a result of the COVID funds that came in and supported our enrollment drop. We are very fortunate to have that. We were very cautious with the spending of it, and by 2023, our ending fund balance was $105 million. The biggest, as we then continued on in 2024, our ending fund balance is $90 million. What we're forecasting for June 30th, the end of this year is 64.5 million. And on the right side, you'll see the significant changes in expenditure. So from 105 million to 64.5 million, that is about $41 million. That amount is comprised of the following on the right side. So you'll see that 6 million was spent on the ERP, and then the structure increases for FFAP, FCE, management, and confidential. So that is what spent down the fund balance from 105 million to 64.5. When you look at, based on this budget, revenues and expenditures that we went through for you, we are anticipating that our ending fund balance at the end of next biennium would be 35,758,270. And that is in alignment with our minimum 12%. Obviously, we would like to have more than that. The board set an expectation of 12 to 18%. We're working on that. We hopefully will have some additional revenues, things that might support that. But at this time, we are looking at a $35 million fund balance. And here you'll see a 10-year trend based on from 2015 to 2024. Those are based on actuals, and the last 3 years are based on projected. And you'll see that in the area of enrollment, FTEs, we were doing very well back in 2015. We had 30,205 full-time equivalent students. We've declined to what we hope is a bottom level of 17,898 students in 2023. And now we are climbing out of that. And we're very thankful for that and very fortunate to be in a position where we're starting to grow our enrollment. What you will see here is that revenues and expenditures have become out of sync with each other. So revenues do not fully cover our expenditures. If you look at 2015 up to 2021, revenue was pretty much on par with expenditure. In some cases, it exceeded it somewhat. And then it was as a result of the pandemic that you will see the increase in 2021 where revenue actually outpaced expenditures. That continued through 2022, and then by 2023, we started to lag behind in terms of our expenditures were higher than our revenue. And so when we looked at this trajectory and putting together this budget, we could see that we need a long-term plan to try to align revenue and expenditures more closely. We didn't want it to be an abrupt reduction to the point that it caused hardship in the college, but we wanted it to be a process where we would gradually meet our ending fund balance needs to align our revenue and expenditure. So that is what this budget attempts to do with the first 2 years of the biennium. And with that, I will just mention here that if you click on these links, there's more information about our budget process, the Integrated Budget and Planning Council, Finance and Business Services. We have our historical documents in terms of the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, past approved budgets, and then our Fiscal Sustainability Framework and Action Plan as well. And with that, I will open it up to questions.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. First, I just want to say thank you to Dina, Mike, and Aaron for your presentation and all the staff too. The general question I have is that I assume that this is just the plan that we have based on the information that we have right now, and then it doesn't account for any unexpected things happening at the federal level. It's just how we do things like as usual for the time being, right?
Yeah, that's a good question, Director Trung, and we are looking at it. It is just something we can't predict at this point in time. So we will be very mindful of that, and we will have to adjust as any of that comes to pass.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Also, so along the same lines as Director Trong, so it's not looking so good. And I sit on a Ways and Means Committee in the state legislature, and we already have agencies coming back to our committee asking for more money, And I'm like, So it's going to be tough, and I think everybody's looking at the May thing with bated breath, right? So, so anyway, yeah, I know you're probably thinking about other options as we get them. It's hard to plan when we don't know. We're kind of faced with that as well. I did want to just also talk about the 10-year trend for the students enrollment. And we all know that the demographics of our state are changing, right? There's going to be less students in the younger roles. So how does that affect PCC? So anyway, just wanted to mention those things, but thank you. I know.
Yes,
Not
thank
new.
you. And we will be watching, of course, closely those legislative decisions. And at one point, we were hopeful that we would have more CCSF, but I think our 6.9% might be where we end. Hopefully, we will end with that number and it won't decline more. But certainly in terms of enrollment too, that's why we're pretty cautious. Our enrollment forecast is, of course, year over year. So once you start to achieve those significant enrollment bursts, we've had a couple of those at 7%. It's hard to achieve that when you're looking at that becoming your new base and then increasing. So we feel at this time, the 3% is a pretty, or our revised 4% is a pretty solid projection for us. But yes, we agree there could be more trouble ahead in terms of the demographics.
Yes.
Thank you all for your work. So we met on April 3rd. We had a Zoom meeting, you and I, Mike, Dina, myself, to see what questions I had about the budget. And the question I asked you then was, I want more detail on the $11.2 million faculty, or not faculty, personnel and benefits reductions. And you assured me you'd provide me that. 10 days went by, nothing. But I'm looking right now at a response that was provided to channel KOIN, channel 6, the day after we met. And in that statement, PCC put out that there's 14 programs asked to complete a self-study to address concerns, questions, et cetera, about their existence. Now, that's what I was looking for. So I don't know why it took me 10 days and a call to the chair to say, where was the answer to my simple question I asked on April 3rd? So what's going on? Why can't, is the board less entitled to this information than Channel 6?
No, and that information is in error that was reported by Coin, but we will go through that later.
It's in the budget?
Correct.
So that is going to be addressed. A team is going to talk about what happened with COIN, that piece of it. The other thing that was sent out was the information around the personnel,
The budget reduction
the
summary.
budget reductions. But what happened on television is going to be addressed tonight.
Well, I'm less concerned about what happened on TV is how do they know that there's 14 programs? Or
That's what's
and
gonna be-
before, how do they know it before I do as a board member?
Well, they're going to talk about it tonight because it's not actually how it was reported, is not the facts.
Well, I guess I'm looking at our response. I'm assuming that's factual.
So when we get to that, because we talked about that, and so they're going to have a team talk specifically about that, and that's who, that team you need to ask the questions to. This team doesn't know about that. So
A
we
team
have a team
Coming
tonight.
up tonight?
This is, yeah,
Oh, okay,
yeah, yeah.
okay.
And Director Saltzman, we did, the budget reduction summary. I did need to share that before it came out from our president and from the board chair. So I didn't reply to you directly, but hopefully you got the information that you were requesting about the budget reductions.
Well, I guess, what I got was sort of a repeat of what we saw originally. There's not much different in here than what you showed us back in January. So
Yeah.
that's not what I was expecting, more detail, more meaty information in
I
there
might
than
not
what I
have understood
received.
that. Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you for the special session that we had together and for incorporating all my feedback here. I feel very heard and this was really clear and I wanted to give you a big thank you for that.
Any other questions, comments?
If I could just-
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say, thank you for your inclusion of us and the student voice throughout that process. I look forward to this being kind of the new precedent for how these kinds of decisions are made. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Okay. Oh, okay. Is there any public comment on this agenda item 25-061?
We do not have any public comment on this particular item.
Okay, call for a motion to approve resolution 25-061, approval of the Portland Community College proposed budget and the property tax levies for the 2025 through 2027 biennium. I'm calling for the motion.
My motion? I so move.
So, Madam Chair,
Any discussion? Yeah.
when are we gonna hear from that group that's gonna talk about the proposed
Where are they
14
on
programs?
it? Would you like us to move
I
them
think that should
up?
happen before we vote, yes.
Oh, we're in this session. We can't. Yeah, sorry.
Well, where is it on the agenda?
It's going to be under the President's College updates. I have team members coming up to speak to that. So it's not, so it's, oh,
Well, I guess it feels a little awkward to me to be voting to approve the budget before I've heard this information. So I can't vote.
So, Dan, how is that related to the budget? The,
14 programs
so,
that are under review, or, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but it sounds like me, they're under review for their existence.
go ahead and explain.
If we have to have a budget in place by
Yeah.
July 1st, it reflects at least a $7 million a year reduction. It seems to me they're kind of related.
I'm going to ask Dr. Jennifer Ernst to come up and speak to the question of Director Salzman regarding budget cuts. And do we, first of all, protocol, do we have
Yeah,
to
do
stay on
we stay
budget?
in budget session to do this? Okay. Okay, thank you. I just want to get it right.
Okay. So can you please clarify and then also clarify and affirm that there's a whole presentation that's going to happen, but is there, my first question, and Director Salzman, feel free to follow up, is there any correlation to the program sustainability process, any direct financial impacts to the budget being presented tonight?
No, there is not.
What else do we need to know?
Okay, do you want her to elaborate right now or wait for the presentation?
I guess I'd prefer, elaboration, because I'm not tracking.
My pleasure. Dr. Salzman,
No.
Okay.
we're looking at a long-term discussion around programs and cost savings around programs. And so this would not impact the budget until probably 27, because all of those considerations and just really looking at programs. And, I want to clarify, and you'll hear more about this and you'll see the whole process, which is actually quite rich and lengthy. I just want to clarify that what was in that article is not accurate.
I never saw the article.
We're not looking to cut.
I never saw the
14
article. I
programs.
only saw
Yeah.
your response.
Yeah, we're not looking to cut 14 programs. We have 14 programs that we have asked for some additional information because we're looking at things like streamlining curriculum or looking at overruns in particular parts of their budget. But that is very different than making assumptions about which programs would be cut at this point. And we're way, way far from even a discussion about that.
So none of
Maybe
these programs under review are going to be cut July 1st. is that what you're
I
saying?
wouldn't, no, not on July 1st, absolutely not.
Can I provide a clarification that might help? And you tell me, Director Saltzman, if this isn't what you're looking for. But the 14.784 million was not related to program cuts. Those were incumbent and vacant positions that did not involve a reduction of programs.
So there's no
that-
program cuts in the proposed
No
14.7?
program cuts in the 14.784 million. I think the
that's helpful.
miscommunication
That's
in the article was associating our reductions with the program cuts. That is not the case. So hopefully that.
Okay.
And,
That's
and
that's
can I,
helpful.
can I also add the budget reductions that are a part of the budget that we're presenting before the board is on this slide here, Director Saltzman, which Mike spoke to, which is materials and supplies, and the personnel reductions for
Yeah.
incumbent. Those are the only reductions accounted for in the budget that's before the board tonight.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
If
Thank
I'm like
you.
understanding this right, the information that was reported to COIN was erroneous.
Well,
let's not
hold on,
talk
because
about
we
that
have a
yet.
media update tonight. Kylie Gardner is going to speak about that.
Is that? Okay. Okay. Director Salzman, are you good on the clarity around? Okay, so thank you, and then we look forward to that presentation. So now I am going to adjourn the college. Oh, wait a minute, we got to vote. Sorry, got a little flustered. So anyway, so I call for a motion to approve resolution 20.
There's already a motion on the table.
Well, then, I second it then.
We were in
Mara
discussion.
seconded it.
Oh,
Yeah.
and then any
then-
discussion, sorry, you guys. I was having a senior moment. Okay, I second. Discussion, okay, Jennifer?
Thank you. Cremona Wagner,
Aye.
Penson,
Aye.
Trung,
Aye.
Watanabe,
Aye.
Saltzman.
Aye.
McKelvey is absent. Zone 7 is vacant. Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for the discussion. Thank you for asking the questions. All of that is good. Okay, so now I'm gonna adjourn the College Budget Committee and reconvene as College Business Board. So public comment on agenda items. Is there any?
We have none for agenda items.
Okay. Okay, so public comment on non-agenda items. Where are they? Are they on screen? Per board policy 2350, the board will now hear public comment on non-agenda items, but will not respond. Commenters will have 3 minutes to speak. Please be sure to keep your comments to 3 minutes. You may be asked to stop should your remarks exceed the allotted time. Any person who fails to comply with the reasonable rules of conduct or who causes a disturbance during a meeting may be asked or required to leave. A person speaking from their role as college employee should do so in a respectful manner and not violate FERPA protected or confidential information. When your name is called, please unmute your microphone. Thank you.
Yvette Rosales.
Is she on screen?
Is Yvette here this evening? Okay, moving on to David Schultes.
Oh. Who are those other people?
So hi neighbors, friends.
Why don't you sit and talk in the microphone?
I need to hear you, so you'll need to use the microphone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, my name is David Schultes. I'm a mental health counselor. Oh, thank you so much. I didn't push the green button. That was right. So yeah,
Thank you.
my name's David Schultes. I'm a licensed mental health counselor. I work here at PCC with our high school age students exclusively. And I'm here tonight with the great pleasure of presenting you with a letter that was signed by over 300 of my colleagues from across the college, both from faculty and APs, as well as our FCE colleagues, requesting more participation and clarity around the federal task force, response task force. And I'll just use the last 2 minutes to read the letter to you all. But also, if I could, I don't want to break the fourth wall, but I think that's enough for the board members. And also, we would like for the cabinet members in the audience to receive a copy today as well. So you could pass those to each other. Thank you. So, dear Dr. Benning's cabinet, Portland Community College's mission statement reads, PCC supports student success by delivering access to quality education while advancing economic development and promoting sustainability and a collaborative culture of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Given recent signaling by the Federal Department of Education as exemplified in the February 14th Dear Colleague letter, we believe that our mission may be undermined by the new ahistorical interpretations of civil rights law by the current federal administration. We are glad to see the President's office respond to this letter, but we still have concerns and need clarifications from the board and PCC leadership. First, the President's response referred to a federal response task force that would provide recommendations for PCC's leadership. We ask that the workings of this task force be made transparent rather than announce transparency. We'd like to know who is on this task force, what is the selection criteria or process was for members, and what decision-making capacity it has. In the interest of shared governance, we ask that this task force include the voices of PCC workers and students. Second, the President's office said at this time, PCC programs and student support services continue as planned. What isn't clear, however, is why this might change. Sorry, how or why this might change. What level of commitment does PCC have to protecting existing equitable programs? It would be invaluable to the faculty and to the larger PCC community to have a stronger statement making it clear that these programs and services will not be terminated. Finally, we invite the board and all PCC leaders to join us in taking a strong stance against federal attacks on our academic freedom. We believe it is imperative to reassert PCC's continuing dedication and commitment to our core staff, to our core values, providing accessible and quality education for all. We PCC faculty and staff believe in our vital mission statement and will support our institution in upholding our missions and civil rights law. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hayden Dale, Dayal. Hello.
Hello all. I had a lot written down, but I'll try to keep this short. I really appreciate the college's commitment to maintaining the Sanctuary College and maintaining the, what's it called, like the federal task force. I think that's a really good program and a really good policy to have. But, you know, being in the college, you can sort of tell there's like an aura of fear going around right now. It's pretty pervasive, and I guess what I'm just trying to say is I would really appreciate it if we, because a lot of colleges I think right now are beginning to fold under the pressure of current federal action, right? I would appreciate if the college were to maintain this commitment to a sanctuary college and maintain a commitment to continue the operation of this task force, because I think you know, students are feeling a little threatened right now, right? They're feeling a little scared. So yeah, thank you for your public service, and that'll be all.
Thank you.
Adam Padilla.
Good evening. For those of you who don't know me yet, my name is Adam Padilla, and with respect to Poppy the Panther, there is no one more PCC than me. To tell you the truth, I grew up at PCC, where as a child, I spent considerable time enrolled in the Rock Creek Child Care Center. That's Building 3, right next to the old koi pond. At the age of 15, I would catch a ride out to Sylvania campus, where I was enrolled to take foreign language credits when I was in high school, on top of the normal courses. And after the pandemic, I became a proud Portland Community College graduate. Today, I'm a proud PCC classified employee. As someone with a lifetime spent at PCC, it's safe to say I hold a firm and unwavering belief in the values that our institution stands for, which is why I want to take a moment to speak on the value of transparency and affirming our collaborative culture, especially as it relates to this federal response task force. It is so important that these decisions involving the future of the institution are made with absolute transparency every step of the way. Now, we have been told that it will be cross-departmental and assured that as a college, we are taking all steps necessary to stay strong and be resilient. What's left missing is transparency on what those steps really are. As it stands today, the promise of new updates has yet to be upheld. All has been quiet since March 21st. What we need is accountability from all those involved, which starts with absolute transparency on all task force affairs, because the truth is, any lack of clarity on this issue strangles the collaborative culture we have all committed to uphold. And it is a problem that the only certainty we have at this point in time is that our voice has not been called for. The consequence of this current process is division, and the solution that we need is unity. Let me be clear, transparency is more than a principle. It's a factor in good governance, but transparency is a commitment to upholding our moral responsibility to build a collaborative culture as one college in the work that we do every single day. Because when processes like this one are hidden surrounding the task force, it sends a message to all those who hands share the work that our students, staff, and faculty are not valued in these important conversations and not valued in the ones that have yet to come. To meet this moment, the task force that was created in our situation calls for more. It calls for open communication, it calls for collaborative leadership, and it calls for a willingness to be held accountable and to hold each other accountable, one to another, in word and in practice, because the truth is that we know we're entering a difficult time to be in higher education. And I know that our community is capable of confronting all of these hardships together. We are capable of facing every uncomfortable truth and holding every uncomfortable conversation that our future comes with. Open doors and collaboration is the only successful way forward as we together prepare to weather the storm. In the spirit of truth, accountability, and of transparency, please do us right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, so now we are reports. Each person, when called, will have up to 5 minutes to report out on updates to the work going on in their respective areas. ASPCC Senate President, Student Trustee Josh Hutchison.
Yeah, thank you. It's nice to be back in person for sure. It's great to see some more students finally at a board meeting. This is definitely going to be the one where I mess up my report. Starting off, we have town halls next week. These are our second round of town halls. We did our first towards the end of winter term, and it will be a reiteration of a lot of the same information, but especially trying to account for students that are going to be coming in next year, as well as students that are going to be returning, just so they're more aware of some of the things we've been working on this year. This includes the student activity fee and tuition increases, which were part of our last town halls and will basically stay the same for these. The student activity fee seal, which I mentioned in my last report, but we have finalized the basic design. It's going to be like a coin character, and this will be there to help identify what things around campus and on the college are funded by the student activity fee. Also recruitment for next year's ASPCC cohort. Oregon House Bills 3182 and 3183. These are the basic needs package bills. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. And opportunities for students involvement. And then just more generally, how to get involved with the ASPCC and on campus as a PCC student leader. We'd love to include both students and staff and faculty, including our administrators and our board, to join us in these conversations over the next 2 weeks. So see this as please an open invite to join any of the town halls you're able to. We'd love to answer questions and hear from some input from you as well. And information can be found on our Panther Hub for that, so just look up ASPCC. Our committees have been working very hard and doing a lot of canvassing lately. We've had 2 pulse check surveys going out. These are really designed to gauge students' familiarity with these topics while identifying some information gaps to incorporate into our info sharing campaign rolling out next year in the fall. These 2 topics are OER, which is spearheaded by our representatives within the OER steering committee, and the student activity fee, just so that we can know exactly where we need to target our information so students are informed about what the fee actually is. The student activity fee seal is still in development. We've settled on the coin design, as I've said. There's a lot to finalize, but we're looking to get it done by the end of this term. I just want to shout out again to Carrie, Tracy, and Christian for all of your hard work on this. We also are going to be speaking at the strategic plan launch next week. So I'm excited for that. We just finished our speech today and got it incorporated into the slides. House Bills 3182, 3183. I'm saying this not as part of the town hall, but as an actual invitation. May 8th is the Basic Needs Now Lobby Day in Salem. We need everybody that can possibly be there to be there. If you want, follow their social media accounts. It's Save Oregon Students, or just find me after the meeting and I'd be happy to provide more for that. Finally, recruitment is beginning. Our trustee and senator applications are now open with a May 5th deadline. So if you are interested in applying, please make sure to have those applications in by then. Our group interview and selections will take place later in May, final decisions by the end of the term. Lastly, I just want to point out that I have 2 board meetings left. In 2 months, somebody else will be in my position, and that person may be one of the senators or other students who are here with us tonight. I'm looking very much forward to this transition, and I'm content with the work that we've done this year. I think it's had a meaningful and positive impact on students with the student activity fee especially. And so I just want to say, as I get ready to wind down and wrap up my time here, I want to take that last, moment of my report to wish you all of our applicants coming in for this next year, the best of luck on that. And, we hope to have that group interview next month. That's about all I've got for today. Thank you.
Thank you. PCC Federation of Classified Employees, AFT Local 3922, Jeff Greider. He's remote.
And Jeff is actually having some technical difficulties, so he is on and apologizes for not being able to speak tonight, but I believe he's sent
Yeah,
Ben
Jeff
something.
did send me a couple sentences to read, if that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so he wanted me to share, so now I'm speaking in Jeff's voice, not in mine. I'm sorry I couldn't make it, and I miss seeing folks in person, but the Classified Federation has been working hard to keep up with things, and we are looking forward to starting bargaining in May. Also, from Jeff directly, it was great seeing folks down at the Capitol on Tuesday, and I was happy to bring the message of fully funding the CCSF at $920 million to the legislators. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay. Ben, in your voice, PCC Federation of Faculty and Academic Professionals, AFT Local 2277, Ben Cushings.
Thank you, Chair Penson and members of the board and Dr. Bennings. I'm speaking in my own voice now. So I just thought I would share a couple of things that we've been working on and things that we have coming up. So in May, AFT Oregon has our statewide convention in Seaside, so we're preparing for that. FFAP also has elections for leadership positions coming up, so we've been preparing for that work. Over the past month, we've been really busy. In April 7th, we participated in a higher ed lobby day down in Salem, which was a really exciting opportunity to work together with actually all of the unions that represent higher ed workers in the state of Oregon. So we had AFT folks like us, but also members of the Oregon Education Association, OEA, the American Association of University Professors, AAUP, and the Service Employees International Union, SEIU, Local 503, all doing a joint lobby day, which we thought was really important and I think signals or maybe is signs of future cooperation between all of our unions, which I think is really exciting. I also had the pleasure of running into Representative Watanabe in the halls, so it was cool to see you. Today, FFAP joined a coalition called Higher Ed Labor United, or HELU, as well as students who rallied at universities all across the country. We rallied at PSU, and we were calling on colleges to stand up for academic freedom and free speech, as well as the right to dissent, all of which we feel are under really significant threat right now. Primarily by the federal administration, but also by some college leadership around the country. And the last thing that I guess I wanted to share was that I want to really offer my support and gratitude to the folks who came up and shared the letter about the federal task force. We feel like it's a really important opportunity to kind of put into practice some of the values around shared governance that we've been discussing, to have some representation beyond just the cabinet on that task force to deal with the response to federal initiatives, especially because they have the potential to really transform our institution. So we feel we need to be part of the conversation. Just as one potentially related thing to that, we noticed that the current strategic plan, while it does call out equity a handful of times in like the preamble, equity and inclusion aren't included in the strategic themes. And so, you know, that's concerning to us. And we don't know to what extent that's related to actions of the federal government. But we just like to be part of those conversations. And so we can think it through together and plan how we want to push back against those kinds of changes. So anyway, that's my report. Thank you all.
Thank you. Any board members? Go ahead, Director Trump.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any prepared remarks, but I would like to say a few words that it's okay. To be completely transparent with everyone, including the public, it has been really hard to continue business as usual, even though we have to, because we have an obligation to do so. But I have been very scared and nervous. You know, as someone who have parents who still not yet a US citizen, as someone who's a naturalized a citizen myself, and seeing how immigration rate been happening, how US citizen just being sent to a foreign country to be in prison, and seeing the federal administration disregard the Supreme Court decision in a very rare 90-year-old case, seeing the attack on federal agencies, including federal worker. I think we have to name it that we are truly in a constitutional crisis, and we are in a very uncertain time, and uncertainty never feel easy. And there were moments that I feel very hopeless. But then I look at the people that I get to serve on this board, knowing the work that Sage and your government relation team are doing, even just the testimony that we have today, right? It just showed me how I see it is that like people want to be part of this work. People want to join the work together to do whatever we can. I mean, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean that we have, we have to do what we can in the power and authority that we have. And at the same time, we have to balance out not being too numb about what's happening. So I'm very worried, and I don't have solution. But I think knowing that we have Representative Watanabe, Senate President Wagner, and a different partner that are out there that trying their best, AG and Rayfield, I think like people trying to fight in different capacity. So I think all I have to say is that, in this capacity as an individual, as a board member, I think I'm committed to working with everyone, even though I know that the path ahead will not be easy. I don't even know, I cannot imagine how scared staff, student, people may feel right now. So I just want to acknowledge that. And I urge us to check in on each other and just stay connected, because I think that's what can get us through this time for the time being.
Thank you, Director Trong. Anyone else? Comments? Okay, President's reports and updates.
Thank you, Chair Pinson. I'm going to go ahead and call up Kylie Gardner for the media update.
I watch everyone else struggle with this every month, and I'm like, how hard could it be? Turns out it's a little hard. Good evening, Director Penson, Board of Directors, Dr. Bennings. I'm here this evening to address PCC's public relations strategy. We heard a little bit earlier this evening about the recent COIN article, so I'm going to cover that, as well as provide just a general update around our public relations strategy in this, as Director Trong said, very tense moment that we find ourselves in. So I'll start with the COIN article that has been mentioned. For those of you who may not have seen it, last week COIN 6, which is our local CBS affiliate here in Portland, published a story about our broad program access review, which Dr. Ernst and Dr. Paez will speak to shortly after me tonight. So they'll give you more details about what that process looks like for your information. That article was written by a general assignment journalist here in Portland, so not someone who covers higher education typically. And the reason why that's important is because we work really closely with a number of journalists who specialize in higher education and who specialize in government relations and public funding, and who we've really built relationships with on my team so that they understand the nuances that go into a lot of how PCC and other institutions like ours operate here in Oregon. I'll say, to keep it short, that we were really disappointed with the article. We don't feel that it accurately reflected the full context that we provided in our official statement. As Director Saltzman noted earlier, you've all been provided with a copy of the statement that we provided to CBS. So I encourage you to review that. That article that was published was really shaped by speculation and understandable community concern. And I also want to name the increasing pressure that journalists in cities like Portland are being put under to produce really attention-grabbing headlines. We live in an environment where clicks sell, and so a lot of journalists are forced to make decisions that attract attention. And the result was a piece that presented one point of view around our academic program reviews, not the perspective of the college, and one that, frankly, as a public relations professional, I don't think aligned with journalistic principles of truth, accuracy, and objectivity. To contextualize this further, we are all consuming media. I don't mean to assume that you aren't as I say this, but I do want to just highlight for our record that we're operating in a national climate of heightened scrutiny, especially around education, especially around public funding, and as you all know, the evolving role of community colleges like ours. And it's also coming at us during the time of fiscal constraint, as we've all been discussing, political polarization, and general declining trust in public institutions like ours. That's layered on top of the fact that the media landscape is shifting around us very rapidly, and the ideals of journalistic integrity are, as I said, really challenged by commercial pressures and the demand for rapid and often really emotionally charged content. And so I don't mean to share that to say that the perspectives included in the COIN article that was published were disingenuous. They were the real, fears and concerns of members of our community. However, I think at the same time, it's important to understand that when community members are raising those concerns, they're doing them through channels that are available to them, including accessing the press. And that as an institution, it's important that we understand that there is validity in those concerns, and we should expect and anticipate that we are going to hear that kind of criticism more and more as the college continues to navigate our financial crisis. And I will just say, for me personally, I think it's an important part of how we, collectively shape the future of the college. As we look at the months ahead and the decisions that are in front of us regarding our funding, regarding the results of this program review and other difficult decisions we might be asked to make, I recognize that the kind of coverage that we are going to see as Portland Community College is going to feel uncomfortable for many of us in leadership, and many of us who have longstanding affinity for and affection for PCC. We have long been a beloved institution in Portland for generations. And because of all of the context that I've just shared with you, we are probably going to see that shift. And I encourage all of us as leaders to, again, really understand that this is a moment where the community is reckoning with not just us, but with the wider context in which we exist. And I don't think that reckoning is a cause for alarm. It's a sign that people care and that they're paying attention. And I think when we see disappointing articles like what was published in CBS this week, my ask of all of you and folks in the room and online is that we're all doing our best to practice media literacy. We're living in an age of disinformation. And so it's really important that all of us are reading critically and that we're asking questions and that we're recognizing when bias and omission could be distorting the full picture. And that's especially true when we're talking about these really complicated, nuanced topics like public funding. I also want to just clarify for folks the role of public relations in higher education. I think people tend to think of PR as the spin doctors, right? And in higher ed, we're here as public servants along with our colleagues to help shape the perception of PCC, but we really lead and do that in a way that we want, we want it to be honest and transparent and in alignment with our mission as a public institution. So my team, which is made up of myself on the PR team, our Director of Public Relations, James Hill, and our Public Relations Specialist, Misty Baus, are here to support that effort of transparency and integrity in a way that is consistent and that prioritizes truth-telling, again, knowing that we are facing an environment of disinformation. It's important to recognize that when any spokesperson, be that myself, a member of my staff, a board member, an administrator, a faculty member, speaks publicly about the college, they are understood to be speaking on behalf of the college. And that responsibility carries a lot of weight for all of us. Our words shape public understanding, employee morale, and institutional credibility. While no one should lose their right to freedom of expression or personal expression, I certainly would never advocate for such a thing. Serving in public leadership roles does come with responsibilities to protect confidential information, to be loyal to the college's mission, and to uphold our ability to stand behind collective decisions, especially when we know that there are differing perspectives behind the scenes and when we're making those difficult choices as a team. Speaking to the media without coordination, however well-intentioned, can really create confusion among our community and with the public. It undermines the work of college communicators like my staff, and it undermines subject matter experts like our faculty and like folks who are doing work in areas like our Federal Response Task Force or others. And we really work hard to center subject matter experts across our college and to work with folks at all levels of the organization. We also run the risk of diluting and contradicting carefully constructed messages. That's my problem to worry about, but I always am thinking about how we can be as impactful as possible. And then I want to highlight that if we move forward in a way where we are not coordinated as communicators on behalf of PCC, there are real reputational risks. Yes, again, that's my problem. But there are also legal and accreditation risks that we should all be aware of and mindful of. My hope is that as communicators and as partners in communication, we are not focused on censoring one another, but that we're stewarding the mission of the college effectively as a team. I see all of our roles and the roles of everyone at this college to reinforce trust, to be speaking clearly and compassionately and with integrity around the moments that we find ourselves in, and to do that in a way that isn't fragmented, because we truly are, to everyone's point who spoke before me this evening, stronger together. Importantly, I want to just emphasize again that the college community works with our PR team, and we're always looking for ways to elevate voices other than ours. We want other voices to be heard. We want to work with all of you, with our colleagues across PCC, to find ways to collaborate about how we show up in the media in a way that emphasizes individual strengths, individual expertise, and elevates ultimately our shared priorities so that we can all succeed together. We have mutually accountable relationships with the media. So while this particular article that was published in Coin this week was not one that we were happy to see and that we don't feel was accurate, we are really committed to working with our local outlets in order to assure that the publications are true and fair. And sometimes that might mean that they aren't flattering, especially as we move forward through difficult decisions, and we are prepared to weather that. Our priority will always be around that mutual accountability and the fairness and equity of what is published and how PCC is perceived by our community. That is all I have for you this evening. I'm happy to take questions both about the CBS article or about our public relations strategy more broadly if you have them.
Thank you. You should have read that at work session.
Anytime you need.
Anyway, any questions? Dan? Questions? Okay, just
Thank you.
checking.
I do have one very quick clarifying question.
Okay.
Sure.
So did they contact PCC before they published the article? or-
They did, and that's standard practice. So journalists usually will get, and I don't, I'm sure that you are aware of this, but journalists typically will get a lead from a member of the community. We believe that that's what happened in this case. And we provided the statement that was given to you tonight.
And they disregarded that anyway.
It was, in my opinion, the statement was disregarded and misconstrued. Journalists often pick a perspective that they're going to go with, and that's the kind of the name of the game in media.
Okay, thank you, Kylie.
Good job.
We have guests, Sova, and so I think we're gonna go ahead and call Sova forward now, and then
Yeah.
I will have the academic program review process and legislative update.
So, yeah. Okay. Yeah, he's done. It's too late. Yeah. Hold on. A station identification break. Hold on.
Tia and Marty will be with you in just a few moments. Thank you for your patience. Thanks for your patience. To everyone online, we'll be with you in just a few moments.
Information session. Okay, oh, you want to call us back or are we okay?
Okay, I'm calling us back to order. Break time's over. Information session. Recess.
All right.
Thank you so much on this, on the screen there. Hi.
Hi. Thank you, Chair
Okay.
Pinson and Board of Directors. So now I'd like to introduce Dr. Tia McNair and Marty Alvarado with SOVA, and they're going to speak to us around shared governance, inclusive excellence, and all the work that they've been a part of in partnership with PCC over the last several months. So Dr. Tia McNair and Marty Alvarado, I turn it over to you now.
Thank you so much, President Bennings, and to everyone. I bring you greetings from Maryland, where it is 12:09 a.m. I'm happy to be here with you. And I'm Tia McNair. I serve as a partner at SOVA. And Marty, do you want to enter?
Good evening, Marty Alvarado. Oh, sorry about that. Don't know what happened. But anyways, I'm Marty Alvarado, a partner with SOVA as well, and it is a pleasure to join you. I am joining you from California.
Thank you, Marty. And to Chair Pinson and to all the board of directors and the whole PCC community, we are very pleased to provide this report to you tonight. So if it's okay, I would like to share my screen. Is that okay to walk through some slides?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. So what we want to do is to give a summary overview of the deep dive dialogues that have been happening and that SOVA has been part of at PCC. We want to talk about, acknowledge the partnerships and also talk about our role in this process, the methodology that we use, as well as an overview of the findings and recommendations from the Inclusive Excellence Deep Dive Dialogue sessions and the overview of the shared governance summary findings and recommendations. And then we would open it up for questions from you. So we're going to present first and then provide the floor for questions. We first want to acknowledge the many, many colleagues at PCC that engaged in this process, that shared their time, their expertise to go into a deep dive on critical questions around shared governance and inclusive excellence and what this means for PCC, as well as what it means to achieve the mission and goals of the institution as well as the community. A little bit about SOVA, just so that you know, we are a higher education consulting firm. We work with higher education systems, institutions, and associations and philanthropies to really focus on large scale change, and that is actionable strategies as well as practical implementation. Our role is to engage and to improve with problem solving techniques and efforts so that we can drive socioeconomic mobility for all, focus on our core values of equity, empowerment, growth, social impact, inclusion, and of course, centered in hard work. So our role in the deep dive dialogue session was three pieces. We were to be critical listeners. We were to code and analyze data to identify recurring themes and to produce a summary of findings and recommendations. And that is what you're going to hear tonight. And we've also delivered a report to President Bennings and the entire leadership team of the overview of all the findings.
Great. So what we also want to make sure that we are highlighting, and this is not new news to you as we've been listening in on your session today, I think there is a strong acknowledgement that higher education is at a crossroads at the moment with rising cost of degrees. We've heard a little bit of conversation around the erosion of public trust and the requirement that we have to really try to address many of these issues as we take on some of the complex challenges like equity and shared governance. What we didn't hear a lot about in our earlier conversations, but definitely wanted to talk about is the technological disruption. So we talked a little bit about declining population, but we also have to talk about how the workforce is changing and how that is impacting our institutions, not just in terms of our declining birth rates and declining population, but also the decisions that people are making about whether or not degrees have value in the marketplace, in the workforce. And so I really think these all colored the ways in which we thought about the report and the recommendations that we're going to preview for you this evening. Next, we want to talk about methodology, how we analyze the data, and we'll just jump right in. I know we are a little bit tight on time, so want to keep us moving. So we did engage in a qualitative research design. Our team took all of the really robust data that was provided from the 17 sessions. It's important to note that these were open invitation, campus-wide, with the diversity of participants, conversations that happened both for inclusive excellence and around shared governance. The approach was really a qualitative analysis using Atlas TI software, really trying to identify emerging themes while also analyzing responses to the questions that were surfaced throughout the dialogue sessions. We also tried to pull quotes from those sessions in order to illustrate the major themes. And so you will see that throughout the report, direct quotes from the dialogue sessions. If we jump to the next slide, we also wanted to make sure that you had a line of sight to the participation. Again, really important. Open access, invitation, campus-wide, with options for in-person and virtual. You'll see here a number of sessions throughout the months of October through January across both inclusive excellence and shared governance. And then we also wanted to call special attention and gratitude for the January session where we had 68 students who joined a conversation around inclusive excellence. So in total, 600, just a little over 600 participants participating in these dialogue sessions that really provided a robust set of data for our team to be able to craft the report. Great. I will pass back to my colleague.
Thank you, Marty. And just to note, there was a web page that was developed for the project and an opportunity for anyone who couldn't participate in any of the dialogue sessions to give feedback through a form. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that everyone had an opportunity to participate and to share their expertise and their knowledge and their viewpoints about the findings that you're going to see. So we want to really focus in on that this is an evolution of shared language. As you heard Marty say, we listened and identified the themes that were coming out. And PCC, as you've heard from prior people that have presented tonight, there's a deep commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as supporting the success and making sure that every single student, every single educator, every single staff member at PCC has what they need to succeed. It's a journey. We understand that. And we wanted to make sure that we acknowledge that we're not starting from scratch in this. The people who participated, the colleagues, the staff members, the students who participated understand that this is not where we're staying at, but we are actually evolving in this process. So for example, there was prior equity definition that really said that equity is a destination. Well, now as the institution is evolving, it's saying it's a destination, it is a goal, it is an outcome, but it is also a process, an ongoing process. So the definitions that we are proposing, for example, have the foundation in what is already being done and highly valued at PCC, but just shows the continuation and the growth and development and commitment to those larger goals that we have heard and that we are deeply committed to. So we are making recommendation in the report of evolving definitions and evolving perceptions of what it should be in alignment to the institutional goals and priorities. In the student sessions, we heard specific themes. Students focused on practical day-to-day considerations. They brought that to the forefront. They highlighted opportunities for growth at the institution. And they also said that they valued the support and targeted efforts to make sure that every single person, every single student at the institution has an opportunity to be in a safe place and an environment where they feel as if they belong. They did address the need for compensation and fair wages for student workers. They want improved communication and resource awareness. That's at almost every institution that we work with. I just want to make sure that no, that's not an anomaly to PCC. And then also accessibility, universal design, support for diverse student populations, basic needs. We know this from national research, and you heard Marty mention this already, that our students want that holistic support. I mean, this is a very trying time. You've heard this from others earlier this afternoon or this evening for you, that basic needs are extremely important, and students are worried about not only their welfare and their safety, but they're also worried about funding and support and what that means for their success. Community engagement and partnerships, students really valued the relationships that they have with the community and the partnerships that are supporting them. And then also, they want to make sure that their voice, their advocacy is recognized, appreciated, and part of the institutional decision making. So when we went to the Inclusive Excellence Framework session, we provided this framework here that the institution shared, and we asked for the participants to give us feedback, as well as the students too, on access and success, climate and intergroup relations, education and scholarship, infrastructure and investment, and community and partnership. The emerging themes that came from this is that they wanted a systemic approach to equity. That's where that process piece came in, is an outcome as well as a process. They really wanted a focus on, the community said, a focus on removing those barriers, those systemic barriers for success for every single member of the community. Shared understanding and communication, you're going to see the direct relationship between the shared governance findings and recommendation that Marty's going to make, as well as professional development and capacity building. They know that even if this is a outcome, even if it is a process, in order to do this work, we need to build our individual and collective capacity to advance what inclusive excellence means for every single person at the institution. And then inclusive representation, you already heard me mention that, across the multiple sectors and groups at the institution, and holistic student support. This was already being developed and engaged and put in place in the strategic plan. So we're just going to lift that out because that is work that is going on, as well as the student and community voice. So our recommendations for inclusive excellence. We are proposing, and this is just a proposed definition based on the findings, is that this is a definition that Portland Community College possibly adopt, that you adopt. Inclusive excellence at PCC is an evolving asset-based approach that is intentional, transparent, and responsive in addressing systemic barriers and inequities and experiences to ensure all students, faculty, and staff have the opportunity, support, and resources needed to thrive as part of a caring community. You will see the intersections of the strategic goals and priorities, the intersection of what Marty's going to talk about with shared governance, but also the CARE principles, all saying that this is a community where we want every single person to thrive. That is what we heard from your colleagues. That is what we heard from the community. That's what we heard from leadership. And we wanted to make sure that that was actually articulated in a concise way. But in order to get there has to be a baseline. There has to be a level setting. There has to be key questions. It needs to be data informed. There needs to be continuous assessment. And there are certain questions that need to be asked to know where their foundation is so that you can set defined and measurable goals. And here are just some of the questions. I won't read all these to you, but we really want to talk about the process for transparency and community engagement, data on lived experiences from all identity groups at the institution, so that we're talking about intentionality, and what's a continuous assessment process that is transparent. We're going to say, here are our goals and how do we move forward. So this is the revised and recommended inclusive excellence framework based on the definition and based on the findings on the refined and evolving definitions of the work, is that we really think that you should center data informed. It should be data informed, whether that's qualitative and quantitative data. And there should be continuous assessment around access and success through holistic support, community engagement and partnerships, infrastructure and investment, climate and intergroup relations, and education and scholarship. And we think instead of saying an equity framework, it should be an inclusive excellence framework, because that is the goal. We want everyone to feel included and we want excellence for all. When in this process, we reimagined some of the existing, again, we wanted to build on the foundation of these areas. One thing that we want to make clear is that in this current time, anything that you're doing around diversity, equity, and inclusion work, around inclusive excellence work, needs to be explicit in stating how it aligns with the mission of the institution, as well as the strategic themes and goals and priorities. And so that has to be stated. It has to have data behind it, and it has to be transparent and communicated in a way that everyone feels that they're part of this. So I'm not going to read all of these, but these were reimagined a little bit based on the findings from the deep dive dialogue conversations. I just want to throw this one up here for a minute so that you can see this. It really goes into the heart of stating that our goal is to support and achieve equity and outcomes across the college. And that's not equity and outcomes just for students, but equity and outcomes for all. And this is the last slide before I turn in, and we won't go into deep explanation of this, but our colleagues at another institution and researchers and scholars, Adriana Kizar and her team at the University of Southern California, developed this model called shared equity leadership. In order to achieve the goals of inclusive excellence, it has to be shared, it has to be an individual, it has to be a collective commitment, and it can't just be the responsibility of the institutional leaders. It has to be the responsibility of every single person at the institution, and they have to play a role. It won't be the same role, but you have to figure out where you sit, where you start, what are your practices, what are your values, and what's your journey towards this critical consciousness to make sure that everyone achieves inclusive excellence. So I'm going to stop there because I know we're running for time. So Marty, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So one of the things I just want to acknowledge as we jump into the shared governance conversation is that the slide that we showed at the beginning around this crossroads that the institutions are at or higher education is at is going to really require community coming together across institutions and being able to navigate complex and difficult conversations and decision making. And so the importance and significance of shared governance within the moment of time that we are in is really important. So if we jump to the next slide, we wanted to approach this given the dialogue sessions, and again, want to commend the board and President Bennings and the full community for their engagement in these conversations. Really wanted to think about a framework for PCC shared governance that is rooted in the conversations and the dialogue of the communities. And so one of the things that we want to start with is this summary of findings. So across the dialogue sessions, we heard these 5 themes continue to emerge over and over again. The need for collaboration and inclusivity, that the inclusivity needs to happen at all levels of the conversation, or excuse me, all levels of the campus, that those impacted by the work really need to be part of the conversation that is going to drive the work. We also saw this theme of transparency and communication, really wanting to make sure that decisions and other efforts are really communicated broadly across the campus, and that there are multiple individuals responsible for those multiple channels of communication. What we also heard was power structures and decision-making as a key theme for community members, really needing to find, PCC really needing to find that balance between those who can make decisions, be held accountable, where those voices come in, again, at those multiple levels of the campus, again, really centering those who are impacted by the work, but also highlighting the need for consistent governance management in the decision-making structures. There was a lot of frustration that lots of committees did lots of good work, but then those ideas and recommendations didn't go anywhere. So ensuring that there is good governance over those processes so that the hard work of committees can be realized for the campus community. Trust and accountability, it was really, really core. And this focus on needing to rebuild trust and clarity of accountability as shared governance structures are improved and or evolved. And then this focus on student-centered approaches, that whatever shared governance is designed to do, it needs to center students and it needs to center student outcomes and impact at the core of it, which was a really important theme that, again, continued to surface from across different stakeholders. Next slide, please. And again, apologies, I'm moving a little bit quickly, but happy to answer questions. And there is a lot more detail and texture to those themes within the report. But one of the things we wanted to highlight for you this evening is how those voices from the dialogue sessions are informing and influencing the recommended design of the PCC framework. So what you see here are some shared governance structure characteristics, things that should be hallmarks of a PCC shared governance, given the conversation and dialogue and concerns that were surfaced during the dialogue sessions. So clear role definitions, making sure that it is explicit what the role of each committee member is and the committee itself relative to decision-making authority and whether it's consultation, et cetera. This idea of no surprises communication, right? That committees are communicating often with broad stakeholder groups in multiple channels, and that they're creating opportunities for public engagement or community engagement. Multi-channel information sharing, managed governance infrastructure. Again, this goes back to the hard work of the committees, not just going into a file, but actually being able to be mobilized. And then transparent decision pathways. There will be tensions, there will be disagreements, and what often surfaced was this idea that those tensions were not surfaced and or it wasn't clear how decisions were made given some of the concerns that seemed to go unaddressed. And so really having clear, transparent decision pathway seems like an important element of a PCC shared governance framework, and being clear about who has to make the final decision based on statute or authority or those types of places, and where it's recommendations and where, again, it is decision making. Next slide, please. And then lastly, this next group of 5, really closing those feedback loops. So as decisions are made, as tensions are resolved, as conversations and knowledge and context move forward, that folks are really closing those feedback loops, that there is also this triangulated student voice. One of the things that we heard during the conversations, the dialogue conversations was, this idea that student voices need to be centered in shared governance processes. And then also that individuals who are closest to students need to have their voice front and center in order to speak for students. And what we also would invite is that it should also be the student outcome data that is part of that triangulation of the student voice to ensure that students are represented holistically through all of those different vehicles. Again, I want to come back to this documented deliberation. I mentioned earlier the structured pathways, really naming the tensions, recording the different perspectives, and being clear and upfront with the rationale for the decision points, given that there will be, again, these tensions and again, as things become even more complex, making sure that there's transparency in those decision-making processes. Shared responsibility and regular effectiveness review, very much in alignment with what my colleague Tia was mentioning previously, this continuous assessment, because this will be an evolution as the campus leans into a new model of shared governance. Next slide, please. So the recommendations, let's go ahead and jump forward. So what we are proposing, and what you'll note here, is that we're not proposing a particular committee structure. I just want to name that up front. What we are proposing is a way of working for shared governance that should inform the committee structures once the institution moves this forward. So we are proposing a shared governance framework titled One Campus United, Governance Through Connection, really focusing on a unified approach to institutional governance that establishes these meaningful connections between all stakeholders of the campus, processes, and priorities, recognizing that while campuses have diverse perspectives and functions, you are all one community with a shared purpose. And really, this approach is designed to ensure that decision-making acknowledges the interdependence, values diverse expertise, and creates visible links between stakeholder input and institutional outcomes. That is the foundation we would suggest for a PCC shared governance framework. Next slide, please. These are the 4 framework elements. Again, your report has a little bit more texture to these, but ultimately, these are the 4 framework elements. Given that, as we heard earlier this evening, we all know that higher education writ large is facing financial constraints, declining enrollments, and is having to make hard choices. And so part of what is needed going forward is the ability for institutions to focus. And so we would recommend that the number one pillar for your framework is a strategic alignment with your priorities. So ensuring that your shared governance frameworks, your shared governance committee is focused on the work that needs to get done and that can be afforded at the moment. And so really thinking about what are your strategic priorities and how does your shared governance focus effort and energy in those spaces and places. We also would recommend the second pillar of an impact-driven governance structure. We know that time and attention is costly, not just in terms of dollars, but also in terms of personnel and resources. When we are directed to one thing, we are not able to direct to something else. And so we really think that a high impact governance architecture is critical for ensuring that you have the right people with the right kind of capacity at the right time working on the right things. And so really thinking about your councils, committee, work groups, and structures based on the characteristics of the work that needs to get done and ensuring again that that aligns with your strategic priorities. Third, we would recommend the element of decision pathways and accountability, really making transparent how your framework is structured to facilitate either advisory influence or decision authority, and being super clear on those decision pathways where authority, for example, rests with faculty groups because it is academic related, where in statute it is a board requirement, et cetera, and being really clear about those structures and expectations so that you can manage expectations with committee members and committee members know what their role is on the governance councils. And lastly, we would recommend an important element of PCC governance literacy and engagement. What does it mean to participate in shared governance at PCC? How do you begin to build a culture, a way of working, and the skills and competencies needed for effective management of shared governance spaces and tables, as well as participation in those spaces and tables? Next slide, please. Last slide. And then what we have here is just some high-level implementation recommendations. We recognize that the devil is always in those details of implementation. And so really recommending sort of this 5-part implementation of assessing where you currently are, which we understand is already in place, creating the new governance bodies and communication infrastructure needed to live into those characteristics and the framework of a shared governance structure at PCC. Really thinking about implementation planning and transition plans, because sunsetting things and starting up things is a lot of work and should be attended to very deliberately. Launching initial implementation and then really that refinement, evaluation, and adaptation as you continue to learn and grow in this process. With that, I will pass it back to my colleague Tia, and I apologize for speaking quickly.
No, you're fine. Thank you. So I'm actually going to stop sharing for a second and we are open for questions.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh,
Director
thank you.
Putnam.
Thank you. I was actually really glad to see so many students and people participate in the survey, so that's great. And you've done a lot of work on this. I guess my questions are more in the end. So, because a lot of these things are not new to what I've heard before. So can you talk about the implementation and the accountability piece? Like how long does this 5-step boxes, 5 boxes, would you assume takes? And then are you staying with PCC through these 5 steps?
I don't have an answer to that second question, and so I would defer that question. But I will say that the 5 steps are not sequential. They need to be happening in tandem because no one has time to wait. Governance is happening right now. And so part of what we would recommend and is inherent in this is the learning by doing and building the capacity as we are going. And this is why the transition phase is so important, because governance committees aren't going to shut down tomorrow and launch new the next day, if you will. It is very much how do you methodically plan out what that transition looks like and what that evolution looks like. And that will be the work going forward. And so timing wise, we would recommend it gets implemented immediately, but that is scaffolded at every point.
I'm fine. Yeah.
What about,
Thank you, Chair. And this question may be for you, but first of all, thank you for the presentation. Can you, I may have missed this at the beginning. Can you remind me about the context of this? So like, we're working toward a shared governance structure, and then this is the, like some of the recommendation that help us get there? Is that the context of this work, Dr. Benning or the Chair?
Can I answer?
yeah,
Okay, yeah, so the shared governance is part of my work plan. Been part of the work plan for year 1, year 2, and now year 3. And so this is directly correlates with that work plan piece. And then the implementation piece is something that will be a second phase now that we've wrapped up the having space for the college community to inform what we heard today in terms of findings. Does that answer? Okay.
anybody else? But you're tired. Thank you so much. And you know what? More importantly, thank you for staying up so late because you are on the East Coast. And that is very much appreciated. They're fading fast around here, so I know you are too.
Thank you so
We
much. It's
appreciate
good
it.
to see you.
Yes, good to see for the both of you. We appreciate it and have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Chair Pinson, that concludes the information session. That was in the board committee. Huh? Did we do the consent agenda?
We already, I did a bunch of consents tonight, didn't I?
We did 25 and 62. No, we have consent agenda. No, we're not doing
No.
any more updates.
Okay, so now we're moving on to consent agenda. Call for a motion to approve consent agenda items 25-062 through 25-071.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion?
Cremona Wagner,
Aye.
Henson,
Aye.
Trong,
Aye.
Watanabe,
Aye.
Saltzman is absent, McKelvey is absent, Zone 7 is vacant, but we still have a majority in favor and motion passes.
Okay, so I want to, number one, thank everybody for staying with us this late. It was great to see all the students and also the very well thought out comments. We appreciate that. And the board of directors established a working agreement. We vow to work within the agreement, and those are on the screen. And Mari is going to, our Director Watanabe. Rep Watanabe, all of the names there, excuse me, will be evaluating us. So for the most up-to-date information on the PCC board and our meetings, please visit pcc.edu/board. Thank you again for attending, and it is time to go home. I know.